Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay, you know what? I chickened out the last second. We're gonna have her pronounce her name because I just know that I'm gonna butcher it. So why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Eve Gagnon, coming to you from Newfoundland, Canada.
Okay, I couldn't have done it better myself. So I'm glad that I did that. I chickened out the last everyone. It's 8:30 here where I'm at right now. So as you can tell, I still got my eyes. I haven't had my coffee yet, which, as you can tell, probably just from talking to me for a couple of minutes, me doing coffee, it's a pick your poison kind of thing where like my head explodes or it turns out nicely. But yep, as she told you, she's coming to us all the way from Newfoundland. And if you couldn't tell just from looking at her, she's a bodybuilder. I don't know some of these guests. I have to announce to people, but you're one of those guests where, yeah, you really don't really need to make that announcement. But she's coming on here to share her health and fitness journey with us. And yeah, just basically talk all things health and fitness. But before we get into that, I always ask this question to every single guest that I have on: what is the weather like in your neck of the woods right now?
Okay, I don't know if I can be able to translate this into Fahrenheit, but in Celsius, it's 0 degrees. It's actually quite mild. We don't really get a lot of cold weather here in Newfoundland because we are basically an island on the water. It kind of hovers around zero, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 32 degrees for you.
Yeah,
So it's pretty mild. Like we don't get that much cold weather.
yeah, it's 1 degree Fahrenheit right here in Minnesota. So yeah, not
That's
not
cold.
yeah, hey, we get into the part of year where like literally, so I got to go to work in like 2.5 hours. I'm gonna have to go and jump my car, or not jump my car, but I got to go and start it like half an hour before I leave just to make sure that it's gonna start, and then I just keep it running. And just like yeah, like yesterday I had the ice where it was so frozen onto the windshield that I couldn't even chip it off. So
Do you guys plug your cars in?
no, unfortunately we don't. But I wish we did, where we did something. But yeah, it's a pain. So I told you that I would tell you a little bit of my backstory with my family history with Newfoundland. So I am majority Norwegian on my dad's side. The sagas will tell you that I am a descendant of one of the people that landed in Newfoundland at the year 1000. But again, we don't know how accurate those things are because it's
Yeah.
literally like 1,000 years old. So the moment I saw that you're from Newfoundland, I was like, oh yeah, so I could tell her that. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I could be related to someone from 2,000 years ago, and there's really no way of proving it. But it's 1,000 years back, so who knows? But just that's one of those things when I hear. And okay, so we got to get this out of the way too. You guys have a half-hour time difference.
Yeah.
The only place on earth that has that. Is there any idea that you've ever thought of or talked to anyone about like why that is? Because that is just the weirdest thing to me.
No, because even like our province is divided into two. There's the island, which is Newfoundland, and then there's Labrador. And even Labrador is on a different time zone as us. So same province, two time zones. Doesn't make sense.
I just think it's Newfoundland just saying like screw you to the rest of the provinces and just being like, hey, we're gonna make ourselves different. And hey, you did it. I mean, that's one of the most unique things that I can really think of. But like, how does that mess up with like time? I mean, if you have like one island that's like right next to each other, it's just an hour ahead and you're half hour, that just must be a pain and a half for like shipping and stuff like it. Because I work in the shipping industry, so that to me is just a nightmare waiting to happen. So how they deal with it, more power to them. But before we get into that, why don't you give us your backstory on what it really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to you becoming a bodybuilder?
Um, well, I've never really been out of the gym, I should say. Like I've always trained, I've always gone to the gym, and I've always been healthy. In high school, junior high, I did rowing, I did kickboxing. I was always a very active person. I used to run 10K a day until about my first year university. I tore my knee out. So was on crutches for about 3 months. And then from there, the doctor basically said, well, we can give you a cortisone shot or you can, start weightlifting. And he said, build up your quads, build up your hamstrings, and it'll strengthen your knees. So that's what I did. So I started training at the university gyms, first of all here in Newfoundland. And then I transferred universities and went to Université de Montréal, which is in Quebec. And then I guess stayed in the gym from there, but the bodybuilding aspect of it didn't really start till about 2014, 2015. I did my first show ever in 2015, uncoached, no nutrition advice, kind of went on like what I thought I knew I should do. I placed dead last, but it was literally the best experience of my life. I loved it, and I sort of fell in love with the backstage process, the day of process, and to this day, it's still my favorite part of it all. Like, prep is one thing, it's 16 weeks of, you know, hell that you put yourself through, but the day of is still kind of my favorite part of the process. So it kind of just went from there. I got a coach here locally and did a show about 6 months after that and got second. So I started off in figure and grew, did a couple national showings from there, one international show as figure as well. And then about 2 years ago, I kind of noticed that I was transitioning out of figure, just getting a little bit too big, wasn't fitting in kind of the lineup anymore. And when I made the transition to women's physique, I fell in love with it.
How much more was that a little weight off your shoulder when you realized that, like, hey, I can just hire a coach and a nutritionist or someone like that and get all that instead of like your first prep when you did everything by yourself? How much more easier did that make it? Because when I heard that, even I cringed a little bit when you're like, you did everything by yourself the first time.
It's not even the stress that comes off your shoulders, it's the accountability. I find that regardless, even now, I still have a coach now. It's not the same coach. I switched coaches about 2.5 years ago. It's the accountability. So you have that person that you have to check in with, and if you're not following their plan, then you're the only one to blame, right? You need. I still need that person to kind of like keep me in, where I need to be.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talked about this briefly before we started recording, and it's a myth that I love to bust every single podcast that I do. And it's, unfortunately, it still exists, but it has gotten better the last 5 years, especially that, a lot of women still have that fear that if they walk into the gym, they even stare at a dumbbell, they're going to put on, 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't have that fear, I mean, I bet you still hear that a lot today. How do you like to respond to that?
I hear it every day. I definitely don't have that fear. I wish it was a problem. I wish I could put on 15 pounds overnight because I'm not a big person. I'm quite petite. I'm about 5'1", and even before I started really weightlifting, I was, that cardio bunny, very, very skinny fat, I call it, because I was quite skinny, but, was not in shape per se. It's very hard to put muscle mass on for women because, hormones, testosterone levels, it's not an easy thing. And the normal person, how they train in a gym, there is no way they're going to put an excessive amount of mass on by the way that they train. The way that we train, we, pardon my French, but train our asses off to maybe put on a pound a year of muscle. So I wish it was an issue, honestly, because I'm at the point now where I do need to put it on a little bit more size. I did my first pro show a few weeks back, and I mean, I came in as conditioned as I could come in, but I do know that as a smaller girl, I need more size. So that's what I'm focused on now.
Can I just say, out of all that, I love that as a as a French speaking person from as with her background in Quebec, her saying "Pardon my French" and then saying a swear. That's the fun. I've waited for that to happen on this podcast for so long, everyone. So we finally got that. But yeah, that is great. But I mean, when it comes to also the size part, I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people are on social media, and I hear this all the time. Oh my god, I want her abs, I want his arms, I want their back, and it's. I just want to strangle them and just be like, you do not understand that you you can train just like this person. You can have the same nutrition as them. You are not going to see the same results because unfortunately people are built differently. But
Yeah,
everyone always has that one body part when they start working out that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then everyone has that one body part that just drags behind. So like you said, you're 5'1", I'm 6'3". So my back is just the one thing that took off for me where it's just,
yeah.
I could look at a mirror and at my back and still grow. Legs, totally different story. Don't even get me started. Calves, oh my god, I'm even cringing now thinking. I've always made the joke I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't even gain an
And
ounce.
I'm the opposite. And I think it's because all the years of running and rowing and doing that cardio, my legs, I don't have a problem fighting through that burn. So like that like fast twitch muscle will just fight through the burn and just keep going, going, going. So I've never had a problem working like building my legs. They're probably my well, that was my critique at my last pro show was I need to balance out my back with the size of my leg.
Well, you think
So
doing all that rowing, you'd have a nice back too as well, but that just is one thing that just never just takes forever, I guess.
yeah, it's just I don't know.
Hey, like I said, everyone has their own blessings and curses. So, it helps me a little bit more to realize that I have people that are exact opposite at times. Because I've had some people where they're just like, "Oh yeah, I haven't really have a body part that drags me on." I'm just like, "You lucky SOB." Just like give yourself your own, pat on the back, basically. Then, but that's and again, I love asking that question because it really does. So many people out there just don't understand the genetic factors that in place. And again, genetics doesn't beat out hard work, but it it gives you a really good starting point
Oh,
in the race.
100%.
So yeah.
Like my whole family, we're very small, petite people. None of us are I'm not I'm saying not that saying this the bad way, but none of us are large, like in an overweight in any sense. We're quite petite and it takes a lot for us to put bad weight on. So like I guess in that sense, I'm lucky because if I do put weight on, it usually tends to be through muscle mass because I've never been a big person. Even, I have a son. Even pre my child, I was maybe 110 pounds. Like I've never been a big individual outside of muscular.
Yeah. And that, hey, that's always, especially in this sport, that's a great problem to have. Or if you're only putting stuff on, it's really muscle because
Yeah.
some people they go off the way, and we'll talk about it, a little down the line about the post show blues because that's a whole different thing in and of itself. But I mean, nutrition is one thing that I don't think is preached about as much as it should be when it comes to just the changes that you're going to see. I mean, it's the vast majority of what's going to affect you the most. I mean, abs are made in the kitchen. I've said that since day one. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first started to really take this thing seriously and as your career's gone on?
The biggest change I made was when I switched coaches, instead of looking at it in a macro standpoint and kind of just eating what I had to eat throughout the day, is I stuck to my meal plan that my new coach gave me. And as silly as that sounds, and maybe it's just because that's how my brain functions better. If I know I have to eat this, this, and this, I will eat this, and this, as opposed to, I mean, some people work phenomenal on macros. It's not for me because I'm that person that will eat this and then say, okay, well, maybe I can fit this in. And this other thing that I want to eat is probably not that great. And if I've learned anything in the past, 6 years, is regardless of the macros, the cleaner the food, the better you're going to look. So I stick to, the rice, the chicken, the white fish, the green vegetables. Every now and then I'll get a steak. But besides that, that's it. There's no varying for me. It's all in or it's nothing.
Are you one of those bodybuilders that like has to put mustard on their chicken or stuff like that just to give it a little bit of flavor, or do you do anything to spice it up? Because for me, that's the one thing that affected me the most was just the same thing over and over again. I would need to have it like maybe put some ketchup in there, maybe just do something to add something.
I actually despise mustard.
Thank you. Okay, I hate it as well. Thank you.
I'm a ketchup fiend though, but it has to be sugar free because I just find like even if like I'm swiping a fry from my son and he's got the regular ketchup on it, it's so sweet. I guess my taste buds are really skewed from years of eating very clean, but ketchup is probably just my go-to.
Which hey, I more power. Again, all these people that do the mustard, it's like, oh, it's because it's fat free and stuff like that. It's like, well, you can get ketchup done too. That's like sugar free, basically. But
Can't do it.
I can't do it either. I mean, I would rather throw up. I'd rather eat my own vomit probably than eat the mustard flavored chicken. But hey, that's a personal choice for me. But I mean, so much in this lifestyle is that isn't really talked about is just the mental change that goes on in this journey. It is 100 times more important than the physical change. I don't care what anyone says, and the only problem is that like the general public, they're only going to notice the physical change because that's the only thing that they can really see. But that mental change that occurs, especially going through preps and just being in the sport, what has this mental journey been like for you? Because, it's so much more impactful just on your overall, health is the mental change than the physical change.
Well, I think the past 2 years, especially with the whole world situation, it's been the toughest mental battle within preps and life. It definitely tests how strong you are. I did well. My prep for North Americans was under a lockdown. My prep for what was supposed to be my nationals last year, and nationals got canceled the day before. That was under lockdown. Um, but I
That's right.
mean,
I saw that post that you made on Instagram about that. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, we showed up there, we had gotten to the hotel, and then we got the announcement that it was canceled. So it was a really that was probably the biggest mental battle for me because I probably spent 2 weeks after that just on and off crying, just kind of trying to get over it. But it was a blessing in disguise because the fact that I did get the opportunity to do a photo shoot for a magazine. So that was my first, I guess, magazine spread, you'll say. So it was a little bit of cherry on top of a really shitty situation, but that's it. The organizer of that show did everything he could, and I couldn't have asked more of him. He's a phenomenal man. So
But how do you get through that? Because I mean, like a day before the show, I mean, I could not imagine. Other than the magazine and stuff like that, did you just? Because with me, man, I would have went off the deep end and ate whatever I saw on site then, and just been like, okay, I'm just feeding this. Like that again, why I could never compete in bodybuilding. I am the exact opposite of what most of these people would have done. But how do you get through that mentally? Because that, I mean, I can't imagine going through something like that myself.
I find if I have something to look forward to, something that's coming, it helps the mental battle. So, for example, the day we found out it was canceled, um, I had planned on having a treat and then kind of getting back on meals for the next 2 days because we had a photo shoot. And honestly, I had half of a cupcake and said, "No, I'm good," and I switched back over to my white fish and rice. So maybe I'm just a little bit, like, nuts in the head,
Next
but
time,
it's
send
just
me that other half of the cupcake, and I will gladly take it off your plate for you. But
Yeah, but I find definitely having a focus on something it gives me purpose. So, for example, after that canceled nationals was when we started focusing myself and my coach on what was coming up next. We did take a little bit of a mental physical break. We took about 2 months off. Got everything in order, blood work, everything. And when everything came back fine, and we got to go ahead and start up again, we went for what was supposed to be nationals again in I think end of June, early July, which then got moved to the fall. And when it got moved to the fall, I made the decision just to do North Americans. I had wanted to do North Americans for years, and I emailed our Canadian, well, CPA president for the approvals that I could go down and compete in North Americans. So once I got that, it was just gung ho, straight ahead, go for that.
yeah, and that's awesome. And I mean, the number one thing about this lifestyle that I don't think most people understand is the hardest thing for most of these competitors is posing. I don't think it's, the general public, if you were to give them an option of, the nutrition, the working out, or the posing, most of them would probably put the posing as the least hardest out of all of them. Because when I tell most people, like, oh, I talk to a lot of bodybuilders, like, oh, those are the people that just, work out a lot and they go on stage and they pose. It's like, well, you got about 1% of the lifestyle down. You got some of the basics, but with that posing, I mean, so many people just don't understand how hard it is. What is your experience with posing been like?
Well, remember that show that I placed dead last?
Yeah. I wonder
I had
why.
no idea what I was doing, and looking back at the pictures, I looked foolish, like, absolutely foolish. I was one of those people that maybe just went like this because I thought my arms had to be out really wide and figure. But honestly, posing and the posing that I've done in the past, I guess, almost a year now, has made a huge difference in where I've placed. I started, taking posing with Kenny Wallach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him
Of course,
through,
he's the
interviewing.
greatest. He's the greatest. Yeah, I mean, everyone goes to him.
Kenny is
Yeah.
phenomenal. And honestly, if it hadn't been for him, I'm not saying that I didn't look, where I needed to look and didn't bring my best package, but Kenny just tweaks it and makes it perfect. And he's a miracle worker.
He's one of those guys that I've wanted to have on just to ask him, what is your time management like? Because it seems like he does it with everyone. So I'm like, how do you get through a day without? Because I can imagine his DMs are just flooded with like thousands of messages a day, and I don't know how he does it, but yeah, he's a miracle
The amount
worker.
of work that he can make you do in like 20 minutes
Yeah,
is ridiculous, and the changes that he could do, it's it's insane. He's phenomenal.
yeah, it's almost a cheat code to have him as helping you along because yeah, he really just he gets the best out of so many people. But out of your physique poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
I love front double and back double. Least favorite is still ab and thigh. I don't know what it is about that. But now granted, Kenny really brought out my best ab and thigh, but I still don't like it.
I think it's just because that's our most popular answer too for the least favorite is that I just think it's just such an unnatural looking pose. Like it's hard to make it look flowy and make it just look like it's a part of a they got to do something with it. I mean, they got to find some
Yeah.
way to make some type of pose where obviously there needs to be a pose where you do have to show off your abs because it's such a major muscle group, but like they need to make it so that it's a little bit less, yeah. I that's my been my problem with that too as well. And Again, we get another answer like that too. So I'm making a board now of like all the favorite poses, and obviously, front double buys almost everyone's favorite. And being the gym bro and myself, that would be my favorite just by default anyway. But I mean,
I think it brings out for me, it brings out my legs and separation of my legs the most, regardless of all the other poses.
again, and most people don't understand that too. When you're posing, you're not just flexing the body part that the pose is named after. You're flexing everything. So,
No, everything.
how long did it really take you to sort of develop that overall conditioning that posing requires? Because most people don't understand the body's not meant to be in that flexive state for as long as sometimes you're on stage on. I mean, it takes it. Some people, it's more sore. You get more sore from that than your actual workouts.
Oh, it's towards the end of it, like, your posing sessions are your cardio. That's how intense they can get. Um, it took a while for the mind muscle connection for a lot of them, I'm not gonna lie. It was especially the women's physique ones, because I only just started women's physique maybe a year and a half ago. Um, but within a year, I probably had most of them down pat, obviously with the help of Kenny as well. But it helps to have a posing coach, and I kinda like that I have a posing coach outside of my training coach, outside of my nutrition coach, because, like, you can together, they're a whole, right?
No, and obviously, yeah, you take more work off of just having just a regular coach then that might have to do all that stuff, and you really can specialize things. And I've heard that answer from a lot of people too, and I agree with it as well. And when you're walking on that stage, what is that feeling like for you, knowing that, like you said, you've gone through a hell of a prep? I mean. Prep is hell too. I mean, like, let's be honest. I've had people that said that, like, "Oh, I love prep," and I was like, "Oh, you're insane. You should
No.
probably get yourself checked in." Like, I literally, one of my last guests said, like, "I love it," and they loved it because of the control
Yeah.
that it requires. And I was like, okay, that sounds better. Like if you just told me like, "Oh, I love doing what I do to my," it's like, okay, come on now. But
No, but it's the discipline
yeah,
that we love. It's
yeah,
the you have everything, and maybe because all bodybuilders are OCD, I don't know.
that
I
too,
know I am.
that
So
too.
it's the discipline, it's the, "Okay, everything is in order. I know exactly what I'm eating today. I know exactly what I'm training. Everything has its place and everything has its little box, and that's where we keep it." So it's probably more so not so like I love prep, but I love how much control I have over my life in prep, I think.
So before I ask then what it was like walking on stage, I got to ask during the pandemic, what was that like? Not having as much control in your life, being someone that really thrives on that control in life.
Um, for the first probably 3 weeks, it was tough because all I did was cardio and bodyweight stuff, but then I pretty much have a fully equipped gym in a garage right now, so I have everything from 3 bars, I've got 2 squat racks, I've got 900-pound worth of plates, I've got dumbbells up to 90s. I have everything I need, plus about 3 cardio machines that I have access to, so
I cannot tell you, like, as soon as it announced the lockdowns, I was like, okay, most of these bodybuilders might need to be on like suicide watch. So I got to check. I checked in with like almost everyone that I've had in the podcast, just making sure that they're like still, because like, oh my God, this is going to affect them so much. But the innovation that a lot of them have shown is just so remarkable. And yeah, I was on that push up, pull up, and sit up workout for a couple of weeks too, after
yeah.
after lockdowns got announced. But I figured out, a way myself. But when you are walking on that stage, what is that feeling like for you, knowing that like you've gone through the prep, you've gone through everything, and now it's just your time to really just show off what you got.
I kinda turn into a different person when I walk on stage, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a smiley kind of social, bubbly girl, like, I keep to myself, and I even say to my coach, like, "I'll pose right now, but I'm like, don't ask for, like, a smile because it's not gonna happen till I get on stage." And when I walk on stage, it's like a different persona comes out. I the confidence, and I just love it. It's a sense of accomplishment. Everything that you've done in the past however many months or however many weeks, like, this is your time. This is your stage right now.
How sore do your jaw muscles get after that show? Because most people don't understand that smile that you present, it hurts to have a
Yeah,
smile sometimes last that long.
it
And
does.
most people talk about it's like, yeah, your jaw muscles are the most sore thing after. And most people would never guess that in a million years.
I don't think I feel it till the next day. I don't think I feel anything till the next day. My whole body is just numb the whole day of. You're running on so much adrenaline that you literally don't feel a thing.
Yeah, that's probably the only way that I would be able to get through it too as well. And what was that moment like too when they announced that like you've won your pro card? Because for so many people, they don't understand that that is the highlight of a lot of these guest journeys. Even if they were to go on to win the Olympia, some of them have still said, like, hey, winning that pro card just because that's the first affirmation that like all of that hard work that you've put in the gym is finally paid off, and you can compete with the big classes now. And just what was that moment like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
It was it was a pretty surreal. I actually won my pro card in Women's Physique Open, and I also won it in Women's Physique 35 plus. So I won the pro card twice. But what kind of put me over the edge in terms of like, oh my God, like I actually deserve this was the way it works among North Americans is they have all the pro card winners then go against each other. So I had all the open pro card winners, and so it's different height classes, and then all the 35 plus open winners, pro card winners would go against each other. And I actually won the overall of both divisions as well. So that moment was kind of like the pro card obviously was the goal. And I couldn't believe it. The second time I had won it, it was like, okay, I really didn't think I was going to get that one. But then when I got the overall for also both divisions was just it was the cherry on top. It was, okay, I deserved that pro card. It wasn't like there was 4 people on stage and, everybody looked like but I looked okay, so I got the pro card. I really, really worked for it, and I really, I deserved it. It was a phenomenal show, it was a big show, so I know that, everything that I worked for, it was well deserved.
Well, that's awesome. And at least they separated you from height class because I was like, I've had some 6 footers on the podcast, and it's like, I'm sorry. That's the one thing that I have with the pro bodybuilding where it's like, if you have someone that's like a foot taller than someone else, they should not be on the same stage competing against each other. It's a whole different thing. But I mean, that's a whole different podcast in and of itself. But I mean, that's just me. That's just the heightest in me really talking. Where it's like, if I were to go on stage, it's like, come on now. But at least, I mean, and that's so great that you were able to appreciate that, and that like you were actually able to feel like, yeah, I actually did this, because I've had some people that won their pro card because they were literally on stage with just like one other person, and that other person could have like been like 50 pounds overweight, and then they're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you get your pro card. So yeah, that is awesome. But I mean, we'll get into it because I mentioned that we talk about it soon, but post show blues is a huge thing that is talked about a little bit, but isn't talked about, I think, as much as it should be, especially because I think there is a myth out there that a lot of people who don't really follow bodybuilding that much, they seem to have that belief that, you guys look like this 24/7, your stage look really basically, and it's just that is not the case. And a lot of times I see bodybuilders in their off season and they don't even seem like they're bodybuilding really, because they're just like, oh, that looks like kind of like they're out of shape, but they just don't realize the whole off season versus in season kind of thing. But what was that like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, this the amount of work that I put into this look, I'm not going to be able to maintain it? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on?
Oh, 100%. I guess this was my ninth or 10th show, or ninth or 10th prep, let's say. Um, and I've had some really, really bad rebounds. And not to say it wasn't 100% my fault, but I also didn't get a reverse from my coach at that point, right? So I get a reverse from my coach the day I step off stage. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do this week, and then the next week after that you do this. And I think that is probably 75% the most important thing that you need to kind of focus on post show. The blues is, I think, regardless of how much or how little weight you put on, you are going to have that post show blues because, like you said, that stage show leanness, it's not maintainable. It's not healthy. No one said that what we do is healthy, especially for that one day, that last week. It is not, and it's not maintainable. Um, I know that there's some people out there that are saying, the main gain and staying lean all year round. It's definitely not something I can do. Full disclosure, I've got about 15 pounds on since the pro show. I feel great. I'm sleeping phenomenal. I'm probably on 90% my meal plan, and then 10% I'll kind of eat a little bit what I want. But I mean, it's Christmas, it's New Year's, and this is the mental struggle is you have to accept that it's okay. And after doing it for so long, I'm more than okay with it. And it helps that I have a really good support system here. Um, we're like a small knit group of competitors, and we kind of all, we boast each other up and help each other through those times. We're kind of like our own voices of reason. So if I'm having a down day, I'll go to my girlfriend. She say, "Listen, you know, it's okay." y- You know,
Or like I tell all these, if you ever have a rough day, just message me and I'll tell you, you still look better than 99.999, repeating about 5 more times percent of the population. So, but yeah, just that's the one thing about the female side of the bodybuilding that's really just opened my eyes just how much of a camaraderie there is amongst especially the competitors. Whereas the guys, I mean, the guys have it a little bit, but it's not nearly, I think, as much as the female side of it is just how much more they generally seem to care about each other, and I think yeah, that does make the biggest difference. But now my favorite question to ask any of my guests: what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced to them, "Hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try"?
50-50.
Yep,
I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. Um, I'll just say it out loud because she'll never see this. I love my mother to death,
yep.
but, she's only now starting to accept it. She will never understand it. She will never agree with it. She will never support it whatsoever. Um, but my father actually came to my pro debut, which was phenomenal. That was really big for me. My father lives in, just outside Ottawa in Canada, so he drove up to Toronto. And, yeah, he saw his first it was my pro debut, and he saw his first bodybuilding show, and he loved it. So, just the fact that he went there was great, and he supports everything that I do from a distance, obviously, because we don't live in the same province. Um, but I've kind of just learned to accept the fact that my mom is never going to to kind of, support it. It's just not in her to. She just, I guess, looks at all the negatives and doesn't see, every precaution that we take to make sure it is healthy and safe to do, right? So,
Which most people aren't aware of. Also, like you said, like the precautions that you take as well. Most people just assume the worst and everything, and that's another reason too. Where I'm just like, yeah, actually talk to these people then, and then realize the stuff that they do behind the scenes to help with make sure that like some things don't go out of, because yeah, this is totally a lifestyle, especially when you're dealing with people that, like you said, may have a little bit of OCD where they can go completely off the rails and stuff. But there's so many precautions that are taken in this sport that aren't really talked about, but it's awesome. And what's your kids reaction like to having a bigger than most mom at least?
well, he can't wait to go to the gym. He's still young. He's only 9, but he can't wait to go to the gym. He'll come to our garage gym and kind of like train a little bit, or I'll show him something. He could actually do some pretty good body weight squats and push ups, and I show him the basics so he knows. But he was really excited, and when he watched my I guess my pro card win from afar, and he looked at my partner and said, "So does that mean mommy gets paid now?" So he's just excited for the paycheck. He just wants, some Legos and some V-Bucks for his Fortnite.
Oh god, that whole generation. I'm 27 myself, and I am glad that I was born when I was born, and not I could not live in that Fortnite gener I'm sorry, but, hey, more power to 'em. I was Call of Duty. That was my generation, really. So, but, V-Bucks for Fortnite. God, I mean, that's
Yeah,
that. Hey, that's something I gotta become a Fortnite streamer then, because that seems to be where a lot of the money is right there. But
a
that's
lot of it.
oh my god, the people that are like making millions of dollars off it. And I was like, what is? I just don't like. I have a buddy of mine that he was a grade younger than me in high school. He's a millionaire. Yeah, he does that Fortnite streaming, and he lives in California now in this big old mansion with some of his buddies. And he's a part of like one of the biggest squads that they have out there. And he literally for his 25th birthday, he took all of his high school buddies to Vegas, all expenses paid, trip, 5-star hotels, everything. And it's just like, dude, come on now. So maybe I gotta hop up on that and take that up. But yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. I mean, I always tell bodybuilders like whenever you walk out in public, you're sort of like a mini celebrity where it's just you draw people's attention just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of their normal. Just be like, oh wow, that's fascinating. What has that been like for you? Has it been easier for you as your journey's gone on to sort of accept the fact that like, hey, I am gonna get serious, especially as you get closer to a show, and even now, even though you put on the 15 pounds, I mean, you still look amazing. So I mean, you're still going to get looks and stuff like that. So what has that been like for you?
I still find it weird to this day. I don't notice it in the gym. I guess it's because, everybody else is in gym clothes. And oddly enough, like I could go to the gym and train in a sports bra and shorts and feel very comfortable. Put me in a dress and send me out to a restaurant and I will feel the stares. I will feel so uncomfortable. and it's obviously a completely different atmosphere. I get that because you're not in your own space. But yeah, it's out in public is different. So I tend to, and I work in a school as well. So when I'm at work, I remember the one day it was about I'll say 35 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, probably close to like 80.
Mhm. Something like that. I
And
don't know.
I wore a short sleeve, not a tank top, but just a short sleeve. And I work in a high school, and
Oh
just
God.
all the boys were like, "Madame, where did you get your arms?" So
Wait,
because
wait,
I'm just
wait, wait, wait.
so
Just
used to
wait, wait,
wearing.
wait, wait. Do you work in a French speaking
Yeah,
place? I was gonna say madame because I was like, I've never heard. I was okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 French speaking or French first language schools here in Newfoundland, and, you actually have to have either a French parent or a French grandparent to be able to go to the school, so it's fully French.
Most people don't understand that. I sometimes have to explain to them it's not just Quebec that is like all French. There are parts of I think there's someone said like it's like a third of Labrador or something like that. Like they all speak French. I mean, it's a significant amount in some other provinces as
Yeah.
well. But that's great. So my dad, yeah, okay, yeah, I've never heard anyone say that's just so great or tabernacle or something like that. That's the only thing that I really know from them. But yeah, that's don't even I do a horrible French, so I won't even disgrace myself doing that. But what is it like, especially as you get close to your show? And like, let's be honest, prep brain, it's not the most fun thing, and dealing with a bunch of kids too. I can imagine that can be stressful at times.
I experienced that this fall, unfortunately. I usually try to prep in the summer and aim for end of summer, August shows because I don't work in the summer. But obviously, I prepped after North Americans for a few months before the Toronto Pro Show, and it was definitely difficult. It's a blessing that our French community here is quite small, so the school is quite small. But there was days it just hurt to walk between classes. It was, but yeah,
I had one other French speaker on the podcast, and it's time that I reshare this story then because it was like literally like 200 podcasts ago. So, do you know that song Lady Marmalade?
yes,
Okay. So, I do not speak French. I have not a word. I do not know what any of the words in French mean. So one of my friends from high school, his girlfriend, when everyone was back for like college break or something like that, I had a bonfire in my backyard and they came over, and she was talking about how she majored in French. So I dumbly said, "Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?" Did not know what that meant. And then she told me what it meant, and I was more embarrassed than I've ever been in my entire life. So I said, "Oh, nope, nope, that's fine. You can, with him, with your boyfriend, yeah." But so yeah, everyone look that up if you want to know what I meant by that. But yeah, that's my own embarrassing French story. So then I just stopped. I'm just like, yeah, I'm never gonna say that again. Obviously to anyone. So it's you live and you learn, everyone. But that was my moment where I was just more embarrassed than ever, and it came from speaking French. So hey, we learn something new every day. But
yeah,
back into the podcast. I just had to give that tangent out there because it was worthy. But I mean, let's be honest, sleep is probably the most important thing when it comes to just not even in prep, just in your overall life too. And anyone that
yeah.
disagrees with me on that, I tell them go pull an all nighter and then go and try to work out and tell me how that happens or how that works for you. Twice I did that in college, and both times I lasted about halfway through, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. I didn't even get my workout finished, but especially when you get closer to a show, people do not understand the conundrum of being so tired that you can't sleep. That just seems sort of like an oxymoron to you, but it's a real thing. And I don't know how many times I have to explain this to people where it's like, yes, there is a period where you can be so tired that you can't sleep. I've worked 18-hour shifts where that's a case for me then too. When I get off and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I can't fall asleep. But what is your um relationship with sleep like as you go through preps and as you go into your off season? Does it vary a lot, or are you one of those rare genetic freaks that needs only a few hours of sleep? I've had a few of them on, and I just hate them more than life itself. Or are you one of the normal people? Hopefully,
I'm the normal.
okay, good.
And I guess I could say every prep is a little bit different for me. I was grateful that my North Americans prep was during the summer. So I basically would get up, do my fasted cardio, come home, have breakfast, I'd have a nap, and then I'd get up and eat and go train and then come home and have another nap. So I slept great all summer. Fast forward to this fall, not so much. I would say like the last month and a half or two of prep was just sleepless nights. And it's like you said, you're so tired you can't sleep. Your brain just will not shut off. So I had a lot of sleepless nights, unfortunately, this past prep, so which made it harder, obviously, with work, and then training, and then having child and having to being you know awake. But
Did you just like inject adrenaline or like caffeine just like right into your veins then, really? Because that's the
I
only thing I
love
would really do.
coffee.
Yep, yep,
Coffee's life.
yep. I would just have an IV personally, just like set up for me, just like just all during the day. Just be like, yep, I need it. But
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. But now we go to my number one pet peeve. I hate it more than life self, cardio. Don't even get me started. I mean, I can walk for as long as I want. I have a job that's very intensive in the walking, so I get like 15 to 20,000 steps just in my work itself every day. But I hate running. hate it more than life
No,
itself.
I
And when,
can't run.
yep, when you said that you ran 10Ks all the time, and I was like, okay, that's a form of mental illness, everyone, and we need to, get her diagnosed or something like that. Because no, I have a friend that runs marathons, and I just think he's the craziest person ever. I literally wanted to go to one of his marathons at the end and hold a sign that said, "You didn't have to do this," just basically at the end. But hey, more power to him. But what is your relationship like with cardio, especially now, where unfortunately, as you do become a bodybuilder, you sort of do have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate cardio. Um, I have a love-hate relationship with cardio. I can't run though, because like I said, when I was running and then I tore my knee out, so I could get maybe 5 minutes into running and my knee just starts burning. So the extent
I
of
call that a
cardio for me,
blessing, everyone. That's her body
mm,
telling her maybe you shouldn't run. Okay, I wish that would
yeah.
happen.
So I use those that phenomenal stare machine. That's my go-to. Yeah.
More power to. I mean, I've never used the stairs myself, but I could not. I mean, hey, I would just go and walk up some myself. But for me, I get my walking done, and I just go on power walks too. That's where, I mean, sometimes I'm at the pace of almost running for some of those. But yep, that is my cross to bear is my power walks that I got to go on, every once in a while just to be able to keep this. But I mean, as we're getting, obviously as we're in the holiday season, and like you said, like every bodybuilder struggles during the holiday season. I don't care what anyone says when it comes to their nutrition. Are there any tips and tricks that you use, or like you said, you just sort of realize like, hey, it's the holidays, I got to enjoy it. But how do you get through the holidays without going crazy, as I can imagine some bodybuilders might?
Um, I don't even think it's just bodybuilders. I think just people in
Oh
general
well, yeah. Well,
overindulge over Christmas.
bodybuilders are a little like a little above the rest when it comes to that. But yeah, obviously, like for me and myself too. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Every year I have a tradition where I drink probably like 15 Coca Colas and those bottled Coca Colas every Christmas Eve almost, and then I don't sleep the night of because I'm just going to the bathroom constantly. And my uncle makes a ton of beef jerky. Like I gain 10 pounds every time, but then like I just do so much cardio the week after that it never affects. But yeah, so you're talking to someone who understands this as well, but hasn't competed.
Yeah. I think for me, what works is, well, first of all, the week after a show, it's kind of like a not a no holds bar kind of week, but I don't restrict myself. So, I usually end up having my normal prep breakfast and like a normal prep lunch, but you have the snacks, you have the suppers, you have the, oh, let's walk into here and get a cookie. And oh, there's a donut shop there. I want that donut. I do that for about a week. And so Toronto Pro was on a Sunday. By Friday, I was done. Like I was ready to just be back on my meal plan. And I'm gonna say this and hope that I'm true or like right, but I think that most bodybuilders are the same. Like we'll go all out and gung ho for a couple days, but like we actually enjoy our simplistic meals and we can't wait to get back to them. So for me over the holidays, what works is I eat about 75% my meals, and then if I'm out somewhere, I won't be down on myself if I have something that's different and that's not on meal, right? Because it is the holidays, it's time with family, and for me, over the past couple years, this is probably like the only time I've had to really kind of enjoy family is over Christmas because it's kind of when I don't prep.
Well, now this brings up a whole nother thing with your time zone. How do you guys celebrate New Year's? Because obviously you can't like go from the ball drop. You can't. No one really tells you when it's New Year's, really, because you can't really watch it on TV or anything like that. That's a whole nother conundrum. Again, everyone, I might have to just do a podcast on Newfoundland's time zone alone.
We are the first people in North America to actually celebrate New Year's.
That's true. That's true. So
We are the first ones.
I'm gonna have to, because I don't even know because I don't even know. I mean, the East Coast. I think there's like a little sliver of Maine that's like 2 hours ahead of me because I'm Central Time, so I don't
Yeah.
think. But I think there might be just a little sliver of it. But yeah, I don't even know if there's any other American places that even are 2 hours ahead of me. But yeah, 2.5 hours. Yeah, she's got me beat there. But yeah, that's again. I could. I mean, I might have to just have like I might have to get someone from like the Newfoundland City Council or something like that on, or like the government or whatever, just to ask them like, what is the reasoning behind this? Like, why are you guys that's gonna be a new project for me. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Um, I don't know if I can word this properly, like the consistency. Um, and I found it not so much in women's physique. I mean, it's in all the categories. I haven't seen it as much in women's physique, but like for example, I started in figure, and the consistency in what they're looking for in each division, it changes not only every year but every show. It changes it with who's judging you. So you get one judge's critique, you go to the next show, and you have a completely different judge that's looking for something completely different. So honestly, the consistency.
1000%. For me too, the prize money, because like, I'm sorry, but if
Love.
you're a pro in this show, you should not have to work a day job. That would be the end goal for me, at least, where it's like
Yeah.
you should be able to just focus on that, because even to win that pro card, I mean, you sacrifice so much in your life, and most of these people, like, I mean, even me doing this podcast, this should be a full-time thing for me, but I work a normal 40-hour week and work week, and it just adds so much more stress and undue stress for a lot of people. And it's like, plus, if you really like let these people have their proper amount of sleep, get all their nutrition done, imagine how much more better they would actually look than on the stage than if they just had to worry about just the bodybuilding aspect. But yeah, that for me as well. And I mean, if we were to talk to a year from today, in which we will talk to a year from today, because you were a great guest and I enjoyed talking to you, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just like in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved when we have you on a year from today?
Okay, so a year from today would be December 28th. So I will have stepped on that O stage because that's my goal for this year. I've got 5 points so far. So I've got a couple shows lined up in the IFBB league for end of summer and the fall. So I will have stepped on that stage, that big stage
When we
next
do
year.
talk to you a year from now, what is one body part that you wish that you've grown the most?
My back.
Well, here, I always tell people this. You want to get a job at like UPS or something like that and just unload trucks, because that was the one thing that really took off for me, that really got it. So, I mean, it's like, hey, it's always open. You can work your 4-hour shifts a day. I mean, they do part time, but no, it's not. I mean, there's a big difference between that. And then there are times where I'd literally just call them and be like, hey, we have 600 packages that weigh 50 pounds each. You got like an hour and a half to unload them. Good luck. And it's just like, yeah, you're really forced to sort of develop a back really after that. And now granted, I
Yeah.
do realize that like, by the time I turn 40, my back is probably dead. Like I accept that, but it's like it's the sacrifices that you make, but it's just yep. I mean, and for anyone looking, and for me too, during the summer I kayak a ton. That's another back thing for me. But obviously, me and you both cannot really be kayaking this time of the year unless we have death wishes. But
Or go down to Australia where it's
Australia
their
too.
summer.
Okay, first of all, I've talked to about a dozen Australians on the pod. That accent, oh my god, it's like chocolate melting in your. Although I will say, my favorite accent is I had a before this became like a strictly like health and fitness podcast. I had the number one sleep specialist on the planet come on, and he was from Oxford. He had one of those
Oh,
UK accents where you just felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him. Where I was just like, okay, I got even smarter just listen. I even told him, I was like, "You're gonna talk the entire damn time. I'm not even gonna say a word because this is the greatest thing ever." But that was great too. And again, we checked off. I tried to get everyone from all the U.S. states on. I'm only missing Alaska and Wyoming, and I'm gonna try to get everyone from the provinces on, because I've had like 50 Canadian guests on as well. And I
yeah.
mean, Yellowknife, and I mean the Northwest Territories. That's gonna be a problem finding someone. But hey, I'll do my best to try to get everyone on here. But yeah, that is just so great. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. I mean, it was an absolute delight to have you on. And is there
No,
anyone
thanks
that
for having me.
absolutely is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Shout out to all the girls that I met in Toronto. I know you had my girlfriend Lisa on already.
Yep.
She's phenomenal,
I
and
I was surprised that she was able to fit in the screen with those shoulders. Are you kidding me?
listen, she's phenomenal. Yeah,
It was ridiculous. Like, luckily she was all covered up, because I was telling her, I was like, would you like do like a shoulder thing? She's like, no. And I was like, okay, thank God that I saw it, because then she posted a photo like right after that, and I was like, okay, thank God you didn't, because I don't know if I'd be able to get it in the whole screen, because she is phenomenal, and she's super super nice too. So
yeah.
that's actually what got me to you, is because I was like, who's been competing against Lisa, or who's she friends with that I could maybe get on to. So I think that's how I got you. That's how I came up with you in mind. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's she was amazing. So I'm glad that you're friends with her then too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and just my girlfriend Lori, she's my rock. She's a women's physique competitor. She's an amateur, and she's my rock. She's my leveler. She keeps me sane.
Not even competing, but everyone needs one of those. But
Yeah,
competing especially as well. But hey, maybe I mean, after this gets edited, I publish it. I'd love to send her a message and get her on, as well. And again, you guys, we cannot thank her enough. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.